In the quiet of a late Joseon night, the silence of a small village home was a fragile thing, easily shattered by the unheard. Isukja, Mina's mother, lay on her sleeping mat, her eyes wide open, staring into the oppressive darkness. She was a woman in her late 40s, her face etched with the lines of worry and grief. Framed by dark hair pulled back into a neat bun, she wore a practical, somber, indigo hanbok with a white jugori, a faint, almost imperceptible whisper, like silk rustling against old wood, seemed to emanate from the empty space beside her. Then, a single, delicate jade hairpin, an heirloom meant for her daughter Mina's wedding, rolled slowly across the polished wooden floorboards. It stopped precisely at the foot of Sukja's sleeping mat. A cold dread gripped her heart, a chilling certainty that the restless spirit of her beloved Mina was still very much present. Before the shadow of grief fell, this very home brimmed with a different kind of anticipation. Mina, a young woman of 19 summers, slender build with delicate features, spent her days preparing for her arranged marriage. Her long, dark hair was kept in a single braid, adorned with a simple jade hairpin, the very one that had just moved. She typically wore a pale green jokori over a cream-colored chima. The scent of freshly starched fabric mingled with the sweet aroma of pine resin from the heated floors. Outside, the vibrant colors of autumn painted the village, a bustling scene of daily life. Mina would often sit by the window, dreaming of her new life, her eyes bright with youthful hope, unaware of the cruel twist of fate awaiting her. She imagined the wedding procession, the joyous feast, the respect she would earn as a wife. Her mother, Sukja, watched her with pride, humming old folk songs as she mended garments, blissfully ignorant of the coming tragedy. But joy, like a fleeting dream, can vanish with the dawn. Just days before her wedding, as the final preparations were made, tragedy struck. Mina, while gathering spring water from the village well, stumbled on a loose stone. The fall was not severe, but the blow to her head, sharp and sudden, proved fatal. The village, so recently alive with wedding anticipation, was plunged into a profound, suffocating grief. Her parents, Park Minjun and Isukja, were inconsolable. Minjun, a man in his early 50s, broad-shouldered and sturdy, his stern, weathered face now contorted by sorrow, wore a simple gray durumaji. Sukja wailed, her cries echoing through the quiet home. The wedding garments, so carefully sewn, lay untouched, a cruel reminder of what might have been. The festive lanterns remained unlit, and the laughter of children was replaced by the mournful silence of a family shattered. Weeks turned into months, but the grief did not subside. Instead, a new, unsettling presence began to manifest in the Park family home. It started subtly. Sukja would catch the scent of plum blossoms, Mina's favorite, where none bloomed. Park Minjun, often found pacing the maru, or wooden porch, would hear faint whispers, too indistinct to be words, but too persistent to be ignored, seeming to emanate from Mina's empty room. Objects would shift, a comb on a dressing table, a ceramic bowl in the kitchen, found in places where no one had left them. One evening, Sukja swore she saw a pale green jugori flutter past the window, then vanish. These were not the tricks of a grieving mind, but deliberate, albeit gentle disturbances. The family's dogs began to whine at unseen entities, their fur bristling, their low growls filling the night with an unnerving fear. The subtle disturbances soon escalated. One cold winter morning, Min-jun awoke to find his ancestral tablet, usually kept securely in his shrine, turned upside down. On another night, Sukja felt a cold hand brush her cheek, waking her with a gasp, only to find no one there. The village began to whisper of a malevolent spirit haunting the Park family. Min-jun, initially skeptical, attributing the incidents to grief and imagination, could no longer deny the tangible fear gripping his household. His robust frame seemed to shrink under the weight of this unseen burden. His stern face was now etched with a deeper, more primal fear. Sukja, already frail from sorrow, grew paler, her eyes darting nervously around every shadow. They spoke in hushed tones, afraid to even name the presence that tormented them, lest it acknowledge their fear and grow stronger. The once warm hearth now radiated a chilling cold, even when fully stoked. Driven to desperation by the relentless torment, Min-jun finally conceded. He had always been a man of logic and practicality, but the supernatural forces at play were beyond his comprehension. One overcast afternoon, he and Sukja set out for the outskirts of the village, where the local mudang, shaman, resided. It was a long, silent walk, the air heavy with unspoken fears. Sukja, her indigo hanbok, appearing almost black against the gray landscape, stumbled several times, her strength failing her. Min-jun, dressed in his everyday gray durumaji, helped her along, his strong hand a small comfort. Their destination was a small, unassuming hut nestled among ancient pines, smoke curling lazily from its chimney. This was the dwelling of Kim Bong-ryun, a woman known throughout the region for her connection to the spirit world. Hope, thin as a spider's silk, glimmered in their weary eyes. Inside the shaman's hut, the air was thick with the scent of incense and dried herbs. Kim Bong-ryun, the village shaman, a woman of indeterminate age, likely in her 60s, with sharp, knowing eyes and a serene yet powerful presence, greeted them. Her long, gray-streaked hair was tied back loosely, and she wore a distinctive, brightly colored mubok, adorned with intricate embroidery. She listened patiently as Min-jun recounted the inexplicable events, his voice rough with fear. Sukja wept quietly. The shaman then began her ritual. She lit candles, chanted in a low, guttural voice, and shook a small bang wool or bell rattle. Her eyes, usually serene, now took on a distant, piercing quality. As the ritual deepened, the hut grew cold, and a faint, sweet smell, like plums, wafted through the space. Bong-ryun paused, her eyes snapping open, now fixed on the grieving parents. "Your daughter, Mina," the shaman began, her voice deep and resonant. "She is a Son-gakshi, a ghost bride. Her spirit is trapped, caught between worlds. She cannot find peace." Min-jun and Sukja gasped, the term sending a shiver down their spines. She yearns for her unfulfilled wedding vow. Her dreams of marriage were so vivid, so close to fruition, that her spirit cannot accept death. Without experiencing that union, she clings to the only home she knows, restless and sorrowful, trying to complete what was denied her. The shaman explained that a Son-gakshi was an unmarried female spirit, often tragic, who, because she died before marriage, remained unfulfilled in the afterlife, unable to properly transition. Her presence could bring misfortune, a curse to her living family, until her unfulfilled desire was appeased. The only way to bring peace to Mina's tormented soul the shaman declared, was to fulfill her vow in death. You must perform a Yonghongyul Lun, a ghost marriage. Find a deceased bachelor, a jiksa, whose spirit also lingers unfulfilled. Unite them in a sacred ceremony. Only then can her spirit be released to find true rest. The idea was unsettling, even shocking. To marry their beloved daughter to a dead man? Minjun's practical mind struggled with the concept, but the shaman's unwavering conviction and the relentless torment at home left them no choice. Sukja, remembering the cold touch and the moving hairpin, nodded, her face grim with resolve. They would do anything to save their daughter, even if it meant marrying her to a phantom. The shaman gave them specific instructions, describing the type of bachelor needed and the intricate details of the ceremony. The search began, a somber and unusual quest for a husband for their deceased daughter. Minjun and Sukja discreetly inquired among neighboring villages, seeking news of any suitable jiksa, a young man who had died unmarried. It was a delicate matter, often met with averted gazes and hushed whispers, as few families wished to involve their departed in such a peculiar union. They visited distant relatives, spoke with village elders, and even consulted traveling merchants, hoping for a lead. Days turned into weeks. Sukja carried a small silk bokjumani, or pouch, containing a lock of Mina's hair and her jade hairpin, a constant reminder of their sacred mission. Minjun, his durumagi, now dusted with the grime of travel, grew weary, but his resolve remained unbroken. They would not rest until Mina found peace. Finally, after much searching, they heard of a young scholar from a distant county who had died tragically before his own wedding, leaving his family similarly plagued by an unquiet spirit. At last, the day of the Yonghon Gyulun arrived. The Park family home, once shadowed by grief, was transformed. Festive red and blue fabrics adorned the courtyard, and symbolic wedding offerings were meticulously arranged on a low table. Kim Bong-ryeon, resplendent in a vibrant mubok, led the ritual. Instead of a living groom, a wooden effigy, dressed in a scholar's robes, stood beside a miniature effigy of Mina, adorned in her pale green jokore and a symbolic wedding chima. Sukja, tears streaming down her face, placed the jade hairpin into Mina's effigy's hair. Minjun stood solemnly, his gaze fixed on the figures. The shaman chanted, her voice weaving through the air, invoking the spirits. She poured ceremonial wine, offered rice cakes, and then, with a dramatic flourish, she joined the hands of the two effigies. A sudden gust of wind swept through the courtyard, rustling the fabrics and extinguishing a few candles, carrying with it a faint, sweet scent of plums. A profound sense of peace descended, as if a long-held breath had finally been released. In the days and weeks that followed, the Park family home was finally quiet. The unsettling whispers ceased. The objects remained in their places. The cold drafts vanished, replaced by the familiar warmth of their hearth. Sukja no longer saw fleeting shadows, and Minjun slept soundly, free from the dread that had plagued his nights. The dogs, once restless, now slept peacefully in the courtyard. Mina's jade hairpin remained tucked safely within the small bokjumani, in Sukja's keeping, a cherished memento, no longer a harbinger of fear. Though their hearts still ached for their lost daughter, the crushing weight of her restless spirit had lifted. They knew, deep in their souls, that Mina had finally found her peace, her unfulfilled vow honored, her eternal journey continuing not alone, but with her spectral groom. Love, it seemed, could transcend even death, finding its way to fulfillment beyond the veil of the living.